a lot of basketball now, so I'd come home and I put like frozen blueberries all over my body.
All right, Lindsay, you ready?
Ready.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Yeah, man, fire in the hole.
Let's have some fun. Timeout. Tyler, who are we sitting down with on this nice Monday?
Kevin, happy Monday, dude. 9, 10 a.m. I haven't even had my bacon and eggs yet. But ladies and gentlemen, children of America, we have Lindsay Jewett, the Director of Mission Advancement at Best Buddies International. Lindsay, thanks for being on an episode of Timeout with Leaders with Kevin and I. And I was going to ask you, I was sitting in the sauna yesterday, right? Like sweating out some good T-Bell and stuff. Would you rather be in a sauna or a cold plunge? What flavor are you there?
I like the cold plunge. I know that's like a new thing, but like that adrenaline rush you get with that cold plunge, you can't beat that.
You do it?
Especially up here, even in Western New York, you can't beat a cold plunge. You can do it outside if you need to.
I don't know if I can do that.
Oh my God. So you got to try it, dude. It's
You
it's
sound
wet
like
on your
this
whole
is a
body.
regular habit of yours, Lindsay. How
I
often
go pretty
you...
frequently because it's a good adrenaline shock to you.
Wow.
It's good for your muscles too.
Yeah.
I play a lot of basketball now, so I'd come home and I put like frozen blueberries all over my body, like bags of blueberries, just because it's like the wrist, even the knees, the ankles, and I just sit there and I kid you not, I thank God for ice. I'm like, or for cold things, because it takes the inflammation out instantly. I can only imagine like cold plunge is probably 30x that.
Yeah, that's why NFL players do it all the time and NBA players do it all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And now us, moms in Western New York are doing it to help
Well, yeah. Well, I've also, for the last 2 minutes of my shower, I read this best kept secret, but last 2 minutes I turn it down to cold. And when I say cold, it's lukewarm. So I don't like cold. The cold is not cold is not, but it's definitely not scalding. Like I traditionally take showers. Lindsay, I feel like you and Tyler and I would have a blast playing any board game whatsoever. But I have to ask, and we're all competitive. I can already see it, smell it, feel it from the group of us three. What are you going to kick our ass in?
Ooh, I'm a good Cards Against Humanity person.
Okay.
I get into that real good because you can really find some good stuff in those decks. And my friends and I always get together and we play like random board games like Cards Against Humanity, and that's always the one we turn to because it's just so funny. There's one called Memes that you pull up the different memes for their friends. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but it's all memes. What do you memes? We like that one too. I'm pretty good at that one too.
That is hilarious. Those are two of my favorite sister-in-law games that she exposed the entire family to. And she is hilarious the way that she orchestrates the answers. I'm just not that creative with some of those things. And then sometimes everybody's like, Kevin, this isn't even really that funny. I'm like, really? I thought it was hilarious. So
I guess it's not really competitive, but you want to get the biggest laugh. You want your cards to get chosen. So like,
exactly.
I guess it's competitive, but
definitely, absolutely.
You got to know your audience there, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm also playing with family, Ty, so like I got to keep it somewhat clean, and like some of these definitions, like I don't need to explain, but they don't even know the words, so I'm like, you might have to whip out Google, but I'm not going to be the one to define
or
that
not.
for you.
Well, Lindsay, I was going to ask you if you could change one thing about the Buffalo Bills offense, what would it be?
What a hard question this morning, I tell you. I'm a big O-line girl, and our O-line has gotten a lot better, but it's still not the best. And I love our players, and it breaks my heart. But we gotta protect Day Josh back there at all costs.
I hear you're not always the sexiest draft pick, when you go with big ugly up front, but you're very. I'm always very excited when you do that and you're in the playoffs and you're like, I am so glad we took that dude that 5th overall and no one still knows his name.
Yep. Totally. Like, I don't know who that guy is, but good job. But I also feel like they're the ones that, like, when they get a big penalty, it's like, man, we're holding and like we're on a drive. Like, couldn't you stop? Like, so I just feel like that's just.
I feel like watching a Bills game with you in person or over the television. Or do you like to not watch with anybody because it's scary? You're coaching.
No, I like to watch with people. I have season tickets, but I am very loud. I'm very opinionated. I think I know the right answers all the time, which is fine, I guess. But some people don't love that. I used to, when I was younger, go to the bars and watch the games and get into a little bit of altercations because I think I know the right answer, but I'm just passionate, man. My dad was, grew up next to the stadium when it was in the city of Buffalo, and my cousin has worked for the Pujols for years. And if you grew up in Western New York and you're a football fan, there's not much else than the Bills. And so just passionate, man. I just want, and it's so cliche, but you want one before you go, man. And my dad's getting up there in age, and it's I just want him to see it once. Just let him see it once. I don't care. They can never do it ever again. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, the Cubs made it happen.
Year,
so
but,
I'm sure Chicago never thought that they would ever win a championship either. So,
right.
And I love how you said it's passion. Sometimes passion gets confused as emotion, and then it's no, it's passion first, right? And then the feelings and emotions come next. But
yeah, I think it's a good organization.
One thing my friend that passed away that taught me about Bills, we started 3-0, and everybody's like, "Oh man, how about those Bills?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a real Bills fan, so I still remember back to the year I was in college. I think we started off 4-0. We beat Tom Brady. That was the year we were going to the Super Bowl, and then I think we went a 12-game losing streak. So we were 4-12 that year.
Well, and I always say too, if you weren't around for when there was blackouts, you couldn't watch the game. You had to listen to it on the radio. Then you don't know what you're talking about. So
Well, the Bills fandom is high. I mean, there's memorabilia just about everywhere you look. I was at the Hilton Apple Festival over the weekend, and the amount of Bills stuff was just absurd. So the Bills are playing modestly well when every artist has got some sort of Bills Mafia memorabilia,
and they're selling out left and right.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, heck, and there's nothing, I think y'all might have one of the best mascots out there. I mean, there's nothing sweeter than a freaking buffalo. You can make those things so artsy cool, with all the hairs and the tusks and all that stuff. And so you grew up in, your dad grew up right next to the stadium, right, Lindsay?
Yeah. My dad grew up out that way.
Okay. So what is y'all's go-to wing spot?
That's a loaded question because I am a firm believer that Rochester actually has better wings than Buffalo.
Okay.
Wow.
So that was really loud, and this is the opinion. Yeah, I like the Rochester sauces better. I know I'm literally gonna get in so much trouble for this. I had boss sauce over the weekend when I was out in Buffalo for an event, and I was like, I don't like this as much as Country Sweet. I'm gonna be real honest. So Buffalo.
Wow. There might be a target on Lindsay after this.
I know. I don't say that to a lot of people, so you guys feel special. I don't know.
What's the go-to
I like
sauce?
The Country Sweet. I like Country Sweet. I love a honey barbecue too, though. So bee sting gets me a little anxious, but I will eat it.
I love the little bee sting, man.
It depends on what you're drinking with it. If I'm having a Diet Coke, it's one thing. If I'm having a beer, it's a different thing. If we're 6 beers in, then it's a whole other story. So
just give me anything. Are you breaded or non-breaded?
I am a non-breaded girl.
Yeah,
I like a regular wing.
See, have you gone to that Wing Dunce place in Buffalo yet?
No.
All right. My buddy went, and I don't know if he knew that you could get breaded or not breaded, but he wasn't a breaded fan. He gave it a 5.8 rating, while the rest of the Buffalo is giving it 9s and 10s. So I don't know if it's only, I think he just ordered the wrong thing. So I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, probably.
All right, Lindsay. I feel like we would all have a blast just driving in the car. If we caught you belting at the top of your lungs a song that really means something to you, what song would Tyler and I catch you singing?
Oh my God. That's a good question, actually. I am a big country music fan, which if you met me in person, which Kevin has, that's very not who you think I would like. But I love some old Rascal Flatts, some old Fast Cars and Freedom. These days, my children do not like that I sing very loudly in the car sometimes, and they'll tell me to stop. It's too loud. But those would probably be the ones that I would be blasting and singing along. 80s, 90s country is the best.
Amen. Yes. I try to get into some new stuff, and it's just, even with hip hop, and I'm like, man, I just got to go right back to my roots. Mm-hmm. And it looks like you graduated when I did, Lindsay, around 03, if I had to guess. And can you take us?
02.
All right. There, I like that. So I guess take us back before you went to Nazareth. Who was Lindsay Jewett in high school?
We were just talking about this a few minutes ago. I was pretty active in school community. I went to the same high school and same middle school and some elementary school as, same district the whole time. And really was passionate about our district and what we were doing. So I was involved with what were called the Comet Crazies back then. We used to go to all the games and stuff that used to go around, soccer games, basketball games. We used to dress up in this relates to the Bills a lot. Dress up in crazy costumes and be really loud and cheer. I was the water girl for the football team for a couple of years, so I was very involved with the football team. And I was a stat girl for lacrosse, for men's lacrosse. So very involved with like school sports. Played a little bit of tennis. Was kind of involved in everything. And then after high school, I was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do. Like, I'm not really like feeling any of this. I kind of wanted to teach, didn't really know what I want to do. So I went to MCC. And I always tell, we work with a lot of kids in our program, and I'm like, MCC is not the worst thing in the entire world. Community college is not going to be the worst thing that happens to you. And so did that for a couple of years and graduated early, and then ended up in NAS and decided I wanted to teach. College was hard for me. I'm not going to lie. It was not, I didn't live on campus. I live really close to NAS as is with my parents. So I didn't feel like I wanted to move. And so it's difficult. It wasn't always the best. I struggled with kind of the conformity of like a traditional school-based program. And so took a year off in the middle of that, graduated, and then kind of went out into the world and bartended and worked some random jobs here in Rochester that everyone does, you know, and then kind of went back into teaching at some point. And then I went back and got my master's in organizational learning, which is such an odd thing because when I got it, it wasn't a big deal. Now I feel like everyone's got that buzzword of like organizational learning and how you develop your people. And so it's been interesting over the last couple of years. I've been able to use that a little bit more, but yeah, I grew up kind of really normal. Siblings, parents are still married. They still live in the same house that we grew up in. Had a dog. Nothing
That's
super
amazing.
Exciting. I feel
when
like
you talk about those random jobs, I think we're all seeing like kind of the impact now without those random jobs.
Yeah.
People are coming out. What did you gain? What random jobs did you work? Because I worked a litany of them myself, but what did you learn from those experiences too?
Yeah, I think that like I always tell, like, again, the kids I work with, like, you're gonna have 14 different lives before you end up like where you actually want to be. And so everything that you do kind of leads you to the next thing. And so I worked in retail for a long time. That was a really good indicator of how to work with people, because you're working with people that are cranky during Christmas and during the day after Christmas, and bartender. So dealing with people that have had too much, working on big parties of people when you're serving, working in schools, like how do you work in a school system? How do you work in a government run system? Like, how does that work? After I left bartending, I went and worked at a nonprofit kind of based organization, but it was for profit. So how does for profit and nonprofit kind of share the same space, and how does it work? And I really do truly think that everything falls in line the way it should in your life. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Like I was thinking about this morning, actually. I got fired from a job once, and like it was so detrimental to my self-esteem, and so it just wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't a good job for me, and that led me to my next thing. And so even setbacks like that, I think, really kind of push you to your next thing. And when you hit a certain point, you realize this is what I need to do, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm passionate about, and that might change. I like to say I'm a little young, I'm not super old yet, but it hasn't changed in 8 or 9 years, so I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. But that's the cool thing about kind of being a human, is you can kind of ebb and flow and figure out different things and find different interests. And that's been kind of a cool path for me, especially when I talk to people. And I've always lived in Rochester, so I have a lot of networks. And so some are my bartending friends, some are my dance teaching friends, some of our my college friends, some of my high school friends. And so being able to loop them all together is super cool now.
I love just how you put sometimes your expectations of how it should go aren't, right? And it's almost like then looking back, it's almost expected, right? It's like, oh, this prepared me for this, and this is why I'm interested in that. I love when you kind of just shared each and every one, is because I was a waiter, I was a bartender, I was a landscaper. You learn these different skill sets and these things to prepare you for what's next. And you may not always know what's next. And it sounds like you didn't really know what was next, but whatever kind of fell in your lap, or whatever you were like, huh, that's interesting, I want to learn more about that. That's been my whole entire career. And I tell Tyler this more frequently now, but I now realize that I was never really in the driver's seat, as crazy as that sounds. You are, but you aren't. Some of those things that just happen, I mean, when you're going through it, it feels painful and it feels wrong. You're like, why is this happening to me? But then going through it, when you can look back at it a little bit differently, it's chock full with lessons. Whether you take those and apply those next, or you just continue to find yourself in similar situations, you're not really looking to the past as just a navigational beacon as to what you've learned, how to get better. I loved how you put that. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I knew today was going to be a fire conversation today.
And And Lindsay, I was going to ask you, so you were in a lot of different things, right? A lot of different sports. And do you think that helped you kind of carve who you are today? Not just like pick, like, because the kids today, I have a whole neighborhood full of them. They pick one thing.
Yeah.
Especially down here in Texas, it's very, very competitive. And they pick one thing and they're like in eighth grade. Do you like, do you think
for one thing, and they're like in first grade up here in football and cheerleading, they got one thing they're doing. That's it. I think that's like the beauty of like being flexible, right? Like I do that with my son right now. Like he's in 4 different things in a week. Like you got to figure out what you like. I can't decide for you what you're going to like. And listen, sometimes I was really into the football team doing whatever I need to do. And sometimes I hated it and didn't want to go and like wanted to do something in like the French club or whatever. I think for me, like being able to see different things and seeing how it all worked made me kind of figure out, okay, I like this. I don't like this. I like kind of the aspects of this thing that let me kind of move it over here. And I think just being really flexible with that, I think that's hard right now with parents and kids. Like you want your kids to excel. That's what, because the only people that are going to succeed are the ones that excel. And so they put them in them sports and they put them in these different things that are like taking over their lives. It's like, I haven't seen, my kid not do something on a weeknight in a month and a half. It's like, he's got to have a break. And some things he loves and some things he hates. And so we kind of figure that out. And he's 4. And so, but at 4, I feel the need to put him in 45 different things to figure out what he likes. So I don't want to be that parent that has him in like one thing and like he's miserable or I'm miserable because I have to do it. And so just being able to see kind of different dynamics and how things work, I think is so important because the world's so different. Every day is different, right? Like every day that we go to work, every day that's the weekend, like it's something different. You're dealing with different people. And we live in such an odd space right now where everyone's kind of like very diverse in opinions and in thoughts. And so we have to figure out how to coexist. I always say, like, I always talk about this when we talk about best buddies. It's like everyone goes to the same stores. Everyone goes to the same grocery stores. So you have to figure out how to coexist properly. And up here it's Wegmans. I know Tyler doesn't have Wegmans.
Oh, I do. I miss the honey mustard, y'all. There's no honey mustard in the state of Texas. That really gooey Wegmans honey mustard. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about. I literally looked for it yesterday down here. It's just too light. It doesn't look like very syrupy or honey up here.
Wegmans brings the heat every time.
Yeah. I want to go back to the parenting stuff because Tyler's a parent and Lindsay will. I'd love for you to share your story of your parenting journey because that's where it really opened up my eyes to how close to Mother Teresa I felt like I was. Mother Teresa with tattoos, but just had this unbelievable perspective and perception on life. But I think you're kind of scratching on the surface of why, right? You were kind of diversifying your thought. You were diversifying. You could get along almost with everyone, it sounded like. But you were also taking these lessons. Back to the parenting side real quick, because I want every parent wanting their children to excel. I agree with that, right? And I catch myself in, but sometimes I think that it's the parents' insecurities themselves of why they're pushing their children so dang hard, right? I mean, I was a U10 soccer ref for a long time, and I quit because there's some of these parents thought it was like the World Cup, like Italy versus Spain, and just it made me uncomfortable almost too, because now we're setting up such high expectations on our kids that are they going to come out thinking that they need to be perfect in order to be accepted, right? What are your thoughts on that? I love that like you're diversifying because you're trying just to expose your son to just about anything and everything so he can self-identify what he ultimately enjoys and likes. Did that come naturally to you? Is that how your parents pushed you, or how did you come to that?
I think so. My parents definitely were supportive of anything that I did. I was a dancer for a long time. I did a million different things. And they weren't the parents that said, like, you have to finish it. Yeah. And I know that that's like a very common parenting style. Like, you sign up, you finish it. And that's not their mentality. Their mentality is like, are you happy doing this? Is this like making you stressed? And so as someone that has like anxiety, it was always good to have that conversation with my parents. My son, who is 4, has a developmental delay. And so his level of success may look very different than a child that does not have a developmental delay looks and what that feels like for him. And so for him, like making it through music class without being frustrated or upset is a win for us. That's you being successful. You going to school and not having a meltdown when I leave, that's successful. Some families may look at that as just the way it should be, but like for him, those are things that he has to really work through. We started horseback riding with him 2 years ago, and he screamed and fought the entire time. And I almost pulled him. And the instructor was like, no, she's like, I think he can do this. And now he rides and trots through riding on a horse all by himself. And so, you know, I think that there is also some real good strength in like the people that are around you that help you kind of go through those things. So if you have a supportive network that help your kiddos and help you, get through those things, and it's so important, and it really does benefit your kid long term. Now listen, we tried soccer, that did not work. I was not doing that. I was like, I hate this, we're out of here. Like I can't. Mainly because I was being told I had to work with him. I was like, I don't understand soccer, I'm out of here. Yeah. But for him it was too chaotic, it was too loud, there's all these different things that went into it. And so, you know, understanding those things for him to be successful are great.
I sign up for something, you finish it. Like that's the house that I came from, right? But I also know you, Lindsay, outside of this podcast today. Why were we doing that? To build accountability, right? To build character, I haven't seen you drop the ball once. I mean, I think like some of these ideas that we're instilling these values in our kids now, that somehow it carries forward with who they become ultimately. I just love how you put that. Is like, if they're not enjoying it, if it's not fulfilling any of their buckets, like, hey, we learned and we're going to go to the next thing. But also how you said too, is like having that support network. Cause sometimes I want to throw in the towel too. And it's like, wait a minute, no, you can get through this. And I told Tyler this story, and I'll bore the audience with it, but I was at my son, he's playing soccer. I grew up playing soccer. So I think that's the other thing. It's like, I have high expectations, but it's more my expectations on myself. Right. And he just didn't want to play. And I found myself getting so frustrated that he didn't want to play. And then I walked to the car and I was like, Kevin, you're a 34-year-old man. If your 3-year-old son doesn't want to play, that's okay. And I walked back and I was like, Angelo, I don't care if you want to play or not. If you don't want to play and that's what you're telling me, then we can go do something else. But it's almost reliving, right, my childhood history as, hey, you signed up for this, you got to finish it, whether you like it or not. Because you're not going to love everything about your job. You're not going to love everything about the world. And that's where I think the mindset, when did that shift from you? I mean, your parents just have a beautiful perspective on it.
I think it shifted. I went to Nicaragua with the company that I was working with. And I came home and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to work for a company that's just making money. They were doing good things in what they were doing, but like, I also saw there was a shelf life for it. And I came home and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So like, what do I need to do? And so I had a long conversation. At the time, I had moved back home after I had a family member pass away that I was really close to. So I moved back home, I was just like trying to figure out life at that point. And I remember just sitting there being like, okay, what do I need to pay? Like, what needs to be paid? My student loans and my car. That's how I survive. I don't have to pay room and board. Food's not really a thing. So it's really just paying for my car and paying for my student loans. And so I quit my job and decided I was just going to work at nonprofits. And that was a big deal. I was making really good money at the time. And I went to working from a full-time salary position to an hourly at a local nonprofit here in Rochester that worked in the inner city, that ran a soup kitchen. That was like the biggest thing that they did. And so I kind of just took a leap of faith and was like, you know what, this is not where I feel like I should be. And I wasn't afraid, you know what I mean? Like, you feel like I say that and everyone's like, oh my God, I wasn't afraid to do it. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. Like, and if I don't, I don't, like, you know? And so because I had a good support system, because I had a good situation, not everyone has that ability to do that. Like, let's be real. It led me to work at that nonprofit for many years. It led me to Best Buddies. And so sometimes taking that leap, even when it's uncomfortable, is what you have to do to kind of push yourself to the next thing.
What system do you have?
God,
I mean, I know your parents, right? But it sounds like an element of God. I mean, when you say faith, right? I wasn't afraid.
Faith is love it. Nicaragua was really kind of the faith thing. I'd never been out of the country. Besides Canada and Mexico, I don't think that really counts, to be quite honest. I never left the country. I never left the country without a family member. I was going on a trip with 9 other individuals, none of which I knew in person. Wow. We were going there to build water wells. And so you're really taken out of your element. Like, you don't know anybody. You don't know the language. You don't know the country. You know nothing. And you're going to places that don't have access to clean water, where here it's, you turn on the faucet, you call it a day. It was so insane to kind of see the joy and like the love and just the simplicity that people can live with, and how strong family units can be, and how strong like you can build relationships with people not even knowing the same language. And so, you know, I'd always had that kind of in me. And I think that trip really solidified that, like, nope, you're on this path. And from there, you know, obviously I worked at those nonprofits, but I started a nonprofit myself that I had for a couple of years, working on community development in Nicaragua and in Honduras, and helped a lot of people there as well. And that had a season as well. So that kind of faded out just due to political upheavals and kind of in those countries that we don't even really understand here of what that looks like. But it was just a very eye-opening experience. So when I came back, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm being led this way. This is the way I'm going to go. So
when you don't know, it also is, that was probably your opportunity where you really got in tune with Lindsay. It sounds like, I mean,
yeah, totally.
You're probably limited on the amount of distractions that you even had, right? You couldn't be at a football game. You couldn't go to a concert. You couldn't do some of those other things. So was that good silence for Lindsay? Because that feels like you, Ty, it reminds me of Matthew McConaughey's trip in that Greenlight book. You know, it's like just went out into the bush and learned who he actually was because he eliminated all those distractions.
Well, yeah, I think that it brought a lot of conversations. Like, I had always been kind of a guarded person. I had some, you know, intense, you know, personal things go on in years prior to me leaving for Nicaragua. And it was good silence, and it was a good reset, and it was a good kind of time to be like, okay, you can do this or you can do that. And this isn't working. So whatever you've been doing is not working.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this. And you know, the person I ended up opening a nonprofit with kind of pulled me aside one day when we were in Nicaragua. I was like, I see something in you that's different. And I need you to understand that. And I don't know why I'm being told to tell you this, but like, I feel like there's a reason I'm telling you this. And, you know, he was very instrumental in kind of pulling my life into a different direction. And, again, people have seasons for things, and he was a big part of a season for a while for me, and pushed me into a different direction. And I think when I came back, I felt very different, and it was very hard to come back from Nicaragua because I felt like I'd seen so much. Wow. The world was different than it was before COVID. So like things were very kind of how they used to be almost. And, you know, people wanting more and more and more, and not understanding that like you having water is enough. You having food on your table is enough. Like we all need, and listen, I love to shop, but like for a while there, it was really hard to even like talk to people. It was hard because then I went right from that to working in the inner city of Rochester, which is a whole nother level of poverty that like most people that I am friends with or interacting with are not understanding or not seeing. You know, with kids not having their basic needs being met and families not having their basic needs being met, like watching that every day, you know, and then coming home, it really just changes how you think about things and how you kind of understand that you're a very small part of a very big world that, you know, you have to kind of be a conduit for things. Otherwise you just kind of hang out.
Yeah. I love it.
And I can tell that even trickles down to how you're raising your son, I think, Lindsay. You know, you got kind of ditched like worldly success, you know, to the side, and really counting those wins, inner wins, you know, inside you. You know, that joy that you have, that passion that you obviously have, Lindsay. You're with us in the morning on a Monday, and it feels like 10 o'clock at night at Hooligans, or I just named some random place, but you know. So I wanted to ask, how do you keep that up? You know, I've gone to some pretty gnarly trips before, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm never gonna buy another thing again. But it usually fades away, or sometimes
you're sucked back in. You get sucked back into America real quick. It's like a vacuum.
Yeah. How do you keep that balance, or just, I guess not even the balance? How do you keep the mindset? You know.
Yeah, it's definitely not a balance. I'll say that. I go to Target and my son gets anything he wants. I'm like, I don't care. Throw it in the car. I don't care. I think it's in different ways that you do it. Like, you know, we obviously we're a nonprofit, so every day long I'm working to kind of help our sources are good. But then there's other things like my sons and I, like, we do a holiday giveaway every year. We do things for the local foster care system. We do things every day that we kind of feel like are helpful to other people. We're supportive of other people. Like, that's the biggest thing I think also that like people forget, like little things that are not monetary are so helpful. Like being supportive of your friends and their kids, like just being there for other people. Like, it's so important for them to learn. Like, you get up at 8:30 in the morning on Sundays and you're gonna go see, you know, your cousins, our best friends' kids, go play football, and you're gonna be supportive and you're gonna make signs and you're gonna be there for them. And like that kind of stuff sounds so silly and so easy, but it teaches them that they have a responsibility to other people and that they can't just sleep in and they can't just, you know, we made a commitment to do something, we're gonna do it. And So, they, both my boys have very long, interesting stories, but I think, you get to a point where like, you really have to understand that like you're given every day, you're given it as a gift, and how are you going to do it, and how are you going to help other people? And I tell this story because it's actually really cute. My son is loving preschool second time around, really loving it. And he has a little friend in the class, and Louis has a lot of developmental needs, but this little girl does not. And they had a fire drill, and the fire drill was very scary to her, and she did not like it. And Louis like kind of has some sensory needs, but like whatever, some things don't bother him. And he just grabbed her hand. He said, "It's okay," and grabbed her and walked her outside. I'm like, that I didn't teach him that. He did that on his own. He knew that someone was kind of struggling and needed some support, and he did it himself. And the teachers were like, "Oh my God, like what is he doing?" I'm like, he knows that someone needs help, and like that's what he's doing. He helps his little brother. If he needs help with a toy, like I don't teach him that. Like I'm not sitting on the floor like, okay, this is how you show how you help people. Like it trickles down, and it shows. Absolutely. When I do something for other people, I think it shows him that he can do that too.
That's that's all I was hearing right there. I mean, watching your mom do that, I mean, holy cow, like that's you've already modeled that way. I just love that. And I love how you just said supportive, be there for others, and it's not all about you. And I think Tyler says that so much. It isn't all about you, but we can develop this element of self-centeredness. How did you? I guess, how did you fight your humanistic tendencies of where you started to realize this world's a lot bigger than me? Was it the Nicaragua experience? But it seems like you were already kind of flirting with that before you went in. I mean, you've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah, I think Nicaragua definitely did it. I think I saw how impactful things could be with just a little bit of things I was doing. And you get highs off of dating and going out and partying, you get highs off that, right? It's but then you can still get those same highs by doing things for other people. And I think that's where the difference was. I had never been married. I hadn't had a really good relationship life. And so I kind of like, okay, this isn't working for me right now. Like, let's put that to the side. Let's go this way and see how that helps. And that changes things. And being able to help other people and see the impact has been kind of what has pushed me kind of going that direction. And the adrenaline rush of like when you can do something really good and it's really impactful, that beats any other adrenaline rush minus the cold plunge, I think.
I just love Tyler. It reminds me so much of that book that we're reading, Seven Laws of Spiritual Success. It's like the law of karma, is literally, but my definition of karma was probably more of that transactional relationship with karma, rather than doing in service of others. It always felt good.
It takes time.
It's good,
I think I said to you, Kevin, when we first met, like, I don't, you say Mother Teresa, I like giggle, but like, I wasn't a good person all my life. Like, I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. I think we all have.
Oh, yeah.
And so
can we change?
It's not this. What was that?
Can we change? Because that's the other thing.
Yeah, I think you totally can. I think there's things I did in my 20s I would be devastated if I ever knew that I would do that. Like, no, but like, it's not a this or that. It's like, you did this. Okay, here are some ways that you can kind of improve yourself that in turn can improve things around you. And I think that's been what's been my kind of thought is like, I have two beautiful little boys that I'm obsessed with, but like, had I not gone down the path I had gone down, they wouldn't be my boys. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know I did some things I wasn't super proud of and like goofy things, like, just drinking too much and acting a fool. And, but now like, I hope I've covered that up with some good work. So that it's not kind of the one thing that defines me in the world.
See, I second that over here.
Yeah. I think anyone that's over 35 can be like, listen, I did some things in my 20s I am not pleased with.
Yeah.
And if I could go back, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, pre-internet, Ty. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
We hit the cusp, man. This age range, the 40-year-old age, we hit the cusp. It was close.
We're like the last of the Mohicans, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Like when I meet someone like with like that's my age, I'm like, oh, you're the last of like the ultimate grinder, never quit stuff.
I remember when Facebook came out, and I was like, what is this crap? I don't want any part of this. And now I'm like, what is, like, literally, like, what is this? It's like so angry about it. Now I'm like, this half my job is Facebook and social media. So it's like,
Lindsay, you said the ultimate word, I think, that a couple minutes ago. You used the word commitment. You keep your commitments, and people are very underwhelmed when I tell them that's the key to my success. But like in your experience, I mean, how do you keep your commitments, or how do you teach your kids that as well? You know, because it sounds really easy, you know, but I find a lot of my friends have overcommitted or decommitted, or they commit and they just ghost people, and it's just not a very good look. And I think if I could redo everything in my life, I would just keep my commitments since I was like 5 years old. I would probably be a millionaire with the network I would have had, instead of just being a jabroni 20-year-old, you know, born in 84. But how do you keep your commitments? And what does that word really mean to you?
So I talk about this a lot with people because working in a nonprofit, like you are depending on people that are committing their time and their energy, but it's not their jobs. And they're most of the time it's a volunteer aspect. And so I always tell people when a commitment falls through or doesn't come the way it wants to, people are committed to people and causes. They're not committed to the act. So like if you act, if I ask somebody to, I don't know, make a donation to me, that's fine. They could make the donation, but they're more apt to make the donation if they understand the cause and understand who you are as a person. And who we are as an organization or whatever you're doing. And so when it comes to commitments, it's all about building the relationship before the commitment, because I think that's the biggest step to that. Like if I say to you, we'll use my buddy's son's football game. I'm telling you I'm coming. I'm coming to your football game at 8:30 in the morning in Wayne County, New York. My commitment is to you as the 7-year-old playing football. If I'm not there, my commitment doesn't die there. I can be like, oh, I just, I overslept, whatever. It dies with him. He thought Aunt Lindsay was coming and she's not there. That commitment is made between us. And so I think that's a big thing, especially when people are on committees or boards or whatever. People get frustrated when people aren't producing. Well, they're not producing because they're not feeling connected to what we're talking about, or they're not feeling connected to the person or the cause or whatever it is. They saw that they wanted to join a board or a committee because they wanted to, but they weren't feeling connected to the actual day-to-day functionality. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I struggle with that too. I'm on boards that I love the mission, I want to be involved, but like maybe I am overcommitted. And so that's one thing too. Like I think a lot of us try to be so much to so many people that like our commitments have to really kind of align with what we're doing. I taught dance for many years here in Western New York, and I just left this season because I was like, I have too much on my plate, and this is not a good commitment for me. It's not a good commitment for my students. It's not good because again, it's for my students and my families I work with. It's not a good commitment for them. So it's just kind of weighing those options, I think, and really kind of prioritizing what are the commitments I need to keep. And I don't even really sometimes list my job as that. Like that's my commitment to my job is kind of, different because it encompasses our whole lives. But like, in the morning and my kids up, are they fed? Made a commitment to keep them safe. Okay, let's move on with the day. Let's go on the next thing. And so, a lot of things I do in the community here, like are family based, and like family needs support, and like families need, people that are going to say, I'm going to be there, and they show up. And so that's what I've learned over the years anyways.
So cool. I mean, just the commitments. And I mean, half the time I think people get themselves in trouble when we're trying to people please, right? And just say what that person wants to hear, like your nephew, like, oh, you got a game this weekend? Yeah, we'll be there. I think it's so many times that we do that, not thinking that person heard that, and then that became their expectation. It's just, I was just talking about it earlier. We were talking about sales, and this one guy had a woman on the phone, and she was like, yeah, I would love to get together. And now he's sending her all these emails to try to book that meeting. And I was like, there's people in this world that will just tell you exactly what you want to hear, but never have any intention of actually doing it, because they're just so uncomfortable with that that moment.
Yeah, just say no. Exactly. I say it all the time. Just say no to people.
Exactly.
Like it's not a personal dig. Just say no.
Exactly.
You can't do it.
For the longest time, I mean, no is. I never wanted to hear it as a kid. I hated hearing no as a kid, right? So I would find my way to a yes one way or another. Not always the best way. But to your point, it's like no one likes the word no, but it's until we accept self, and, we have those boundaries. I've had to work immensely in this area because I was constantly overcommitting myself, trying to be the master of all, and then you end up being the master of none. So I totally understand. And I love
how much time gets wasted when you don't get a no. Look at this sales rep. He's emailing him 15 times. He's doing something completely different that's completely more beneficial. I always say, people, if you ask for something, just give me a no. If it's a no, I got it. I've gotten no so many times in my professional life, and I've made it through. I've gotten through it. It's fine. I'll find a yes somewhere. It kills me.
You almost respect it even more in a weird way. And someone like, It's almost like when I heard the saying, like, bring bad news fast. I learned that pretty early in my career, and I love it. When I have some like real bad news at work, I'm like, all right, here it comes, and the response is always hilarious. Like, it's always like almost a belly laugh if it's really bad news, and you just freaking bring it to the table. People, I don't know. I think I've learned something there, and I kid you not. 99% of those have been pretty big belly laughs and giggles, during the process of holy crap, this is awful. But thanks for.
And then it goes back to how serious is all of this? Like how we're all just kind of just functioning. I saw a picture the other day of like, here's you answering email, and it's like our planet and the whole solar system. Like, this is like, some of this stuff is not detrimental to anything. Like, it's going to be okay. And so I think that's one thing I've learned the last couple of years, actually, with the pandemic, and kind of that really shapes a nonprofit that's all based on social inclusion. Is this really going to be the biggest detriment? Is this going to be a problem? Like, you kind of have to walk through those things and kind of ask yourself, like, is this the worst thing in the entire world? No. Okay, cool. Let's move on. There's so much time wasted in like,
definitely
divulging all these things.
Being trapped by your past and then trying to predict and control your future, I think you're missing out on life. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I mean, prioritizing family first, that's everything else kind of falls in line. And then Tyler has this theory, right? You sweat within a day. That's the biggest part. You've already climbed Everest. So what's a bad news from somebody or a no from somebody else when I've already sweat? I got up at 5 a.m. this morning to do X, Y, and Z. It's almost like as if, like in my own world, so I understand it too, work was the biggest part of my pie, right? And I allowed it to be the biggest part of my pie. So therefore, my emotions or my worth, right, rode the ebbs and flows of this highly unpredictable area of my life, because it's humans, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day. So when that internal grace is not happening, you have this over reliance on others for that, while you're also trying to dim your light so they feel comfortable and like they belong as well at the same time. So it is definitely a balance, but I think work is just taking such a central figure in everyone's life that they're now basing it off of, right? The worldly expectations. I loved whoever said that, Lindsay. I think it was you earlier. The worldly expectations. That's really it. It's not even our own expectations. It's, let me fall in line because that's what everybody else is prioritizing. So I'm wrong if I'm not prioritizing those same things.
Well, and I think too, like, you're working in a nonprofit, you're trying to raise money. And so, you get a good hit of money or whatever it is. And you're like, okay, I can sit and breathe for a second. And then I can go back to the next thing. It's like, once that breath is gone though, it's like, it's never enough. You got to keep going. And that's really hard for a lot of people. And I think if you're passionate about what you're doing, whether it be in sales or be in nonprofits or whatever it is, if you're passionate about it, then that's why you tie your self-worth to it, because you're like, I want to make the difference for this. I want to do this. I want to make this kind of what it is. And so that is hard. And I think if you don't have something to go home to, for a long time I was single, went home to nothing other than a couple dogs, and some good friends and a family. Like, that's very different. And so your priorities are so much based on what you are doing in that public light. And it's hard too, like when you become someone in an organization where you're kind of the face of them, like anything you do is kind of like, well, that worked. Good for Lindsay. Oh, that didn't work. Ooh, Lindsay, what happened here? It's like, it becomes you, which is so wonderful, but also for your own self-understanding. It's like, okay, I can't just sit here and be idle. Like, I have to keep moving, keep doing things differently. And so that's one thing that I've had to learn over the last 4 years of having kids. It's like, I got to take a step back, guys. I can't answer emails at 10 o'clock at night. I got to go do something, or, I need to take that vacation day or whatever it is. And those are things I never would have done. I took a sick day 2 weeks ago because I ended up getting sick with migraine. I never take a sick day. Best buddies.
Wow.
Ever. In almost 9 years.
Was there an element of you feeling
that's a problem?
Guilty and shameful for taking that time? Is that like,
no, I just felt like I wasn't
like
enough.
idleness felt wrong. I think idleness for me felt wrong.
Yeah.
I felt like I was losing time, right?
When you're admitting defeat, you're like, I really can't do this day. I have to take the sick day. Like, that admits defeat to me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, and I can't do that. And I, luckily, I'm not gonna I'm a very healthy person, but I was like, I said to somebody, my best friend, I was like, I took a sick day. She was, what? Because I've never heard you take a sick day ever. I was like, yeah. It was a migraine. I just felt like I needed to take the day. So it was just interesting to me. I was like, oh, I haven't taken a sick day in a very long time. So it rolls over for us. So I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot of sick days in here.
Yeah.
But
well, let's get into Best Buddies International real quick. I have no idea what it is. If you want to go ahead and take the floor, give us the rundown here.
So Best Buddies International is a international nonprofit. It was founded in 1989 by Anthony Kennedy Shriver. So Anthony's mom is Eunice Shriver and his dad is Sergeant Shriver. So Sergeant Shriver founded Peace Corps. Eunice Shriver founded Special Olympics. So it follows along with those kind of missions very similarly. So Anthony developed this nonprofit in his dorm room in Georgetown. And so basically he saw individuals that were kind of around campus or at campus, and they did not have any social inclusion on campus. So these are individuals with disabilities from Down syndrome to autism, Fragile X, developmental disabilities like my son has. And so he wanted them to feel included in their communities. And so he started a chapter. And so we came here 8 years ago, excuse me, when I opened the office here with a grant from the Golisano Foundation. And so we work primarily in school districts, and we work to make schools feel more inclusive for families that have students with disabilities. But we also work with individuals that do not have disabilities and teach them about social inclusion, about equity, about how to be good ambassadors and how to be good advocates for themselves. We work in our adult community. So anyone that's 18 or over, we work in the community to kind of get them feeling socially included as well. So an individual that's 21 years old that has Down syndrome will find a friend in the community, and then they will build a real friendship. And so we've seen those things happen over the years, and we've had, friendship pairs like being in each other's weddings and like be godparents to their kids. It's like so incredible. And then as the has grown over the years, we've incorporated things like jobs and helping individuals find jobs that are not minimum wage or below the pay rate. We work with kids at the age of 14 to try to figure out what they want to do. A lot of school districts don't have a program in place to help individuals with disabilities find out what they want to do, because what many feel like, are they going to do? And so we kind of go in there and help with that. We also have new programs that are coming to the area, hopefully in the next couple of years. We have a living program that has individuals that have disabilities living inclusively with individuals that do not. So giving them a really great living experience. And then our biggest newest program is the one I'm the most excited about. It's called Uni's Buddies, and we pair up parents that are getting a first diagnosis for their child. So whether that is Down syndrome before birth or autism at 2 years old, we pair them with a parent that has already gone through it. And so that they can figure out the social networks, and they can figure out the doctors they should see and all those types of things, like giving them all the connections that they need, so that the journey isn't as scary for them when they're getting those diagnoses. I lucked out in my life. My aunt had Down syndrome, and my family never treated her like that. So like Best Buddies was an easy fit for me. And then when I had my first child, when I first brought him home, I was given a multitude of different things that was going to go on with him and all the things that he would need services wise and this, that. And I turned to my Best Buddies parents. I was like, I need you guys to kind of help me through this. And so it's such a needed program. But everything we do is free for families, which I think is so important. We work within very diverse communities, and we really just want everyone to feel like they have a place and that they have the right to have that most successful life that they can have, whatever that might be. And so that looks different for everybody, and we kind of acknowledge that. And again, we really just want people to feel like they have a space and they have a community that's really beneficial for them and their families. So
love how you say that. Free for families.
It's a pretty cool job. I'm not going to lie.
Everybody has a place. I think there's that's just a basic humanistic need. You saw water, right? And then you saw community. They didn't need all these other things, but you saw connection and how powerful connection really was.
Yeah.
And I just hear like how important perspective really is until you go through it. And then that's why you just said, hey, here's one of the things I'm most excited for, because you lived it. And all of a sudden it's like, we need this program because it can be isolating, I'm sure. And then all of a sudden, if you don't have the support, then you can feel alone. And oh my gosh, how do people get involved? How do people donate? What do we do, Lindsay? Like I said, we said donations. Well, let's get serious. But now that you've motivated people, right, and you've gotten them attached to a mission that they can believe in, how do they get involved? What do you have coming up? What are ways that they can give back?
So Best Buddies is easy to find. We're bestbuddies.org. Super easy. We have a very recognizable logo. It's a Keith Haring logo. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it. Oh, you can kind of see it. There it goes.
Oh, yeah.
Very recognizable. People love the logo probably more than they love me before they talk to me, which is fine. Then they'll learn to love me. It's fine. And so you can head up there. If you are not in our specific area, you can kind of click the link. It'll show you where they are, where our programs are. We're always looking to expand our programs because there's so many people that need our services that we are in all 50 states, but that doesn't mean we cover our whole state. So we really have a lot of impact that we want to have. In Rochester right now, in Western New York, we're focusing on our Tailgate of Champions, which is our biggest fundraiser every year. And it's a gala, but I refuse to do galas because I don't like them. I like people to come as they are and feel comfortable. And I also like to keep the barrier of cost down. So many galas that you go to, there's a barrier of cost. Like I can't pay for $250 tickets. Sorry. I don't care how much I love you. And so our tickets are always priced the way they should be. And if someone really wants to come, they don't have the funds, then they can just talk to me. I'll probably give them a ticket. So that event's coming up on November 8th. And we have 8 individuals in our community that pledge to raise money for us. And Kevin is one of those lovely people. And while they're paired up with an individual from our program. So Kevin met our friend Diego, who is amazing. And so Kevin will learn kind of what Diego is like, what life with Diego is like, what life with Diego is like with Best Buddies. And then he'll kind of see the full impact on November 8th when he comes to our event. Like I said, it's a big tailgate. Last year we did Denim and Diamonds and it was super successful. So we decided to up the ante and tent off the whole front off of the building and turn it into a giant tailgate. So it should be, I'm on a limb, guys. I'm over budget and I'm ready to rumble. So
ready to rumble. I love that. That's the tagline, Lindsay.
We'll see. Again, the competitive nature came on me. They're like, here's your goal. I'm like, I'm gonna surpass that goal. And now I'm a little nervous, but it's okay. It's my favorite event. So
yeah. I immediately was drawn in to your point. I mean, you were like, hey, somebody nominated you. I was like, for what? And I was like, what is the best? But I've seen the logo before. But then after meeting you, hearing your story of the 2 children that you decided to adopt. And I mean, I always have gotten that sense of when I feel like I belong, I'll do more, and that's where, I mean, meeting Diego, the guy, he jumped in and started doing Michael Jackson moves within the first 30 seconds of me meeting him. And I just said, I wish I could have that perspective on life, and I can stop caring so much about what others think. And here's just a beautiful example of he does not care. He was wearing what he wanted, saying what he wanted, doing what he wanted. It was just so inspiring, and it made me want to go to war for this kid because it's like, if that's your perspective, we need to get that perspective out to the world because so many other people need to hear that message and start taking a play out of your playbook, Diego. So I'm so excited for the Best Buddies program. I am so gracious that I had the opportunity to get involved this year. Obviously, I will be sure to share my donations page, but also the information on Best Buddies. And really this week, anybody that's hearing this message, you'll probably see an email from me requesting donations because it's a really cool program. And as we just heard, Lindsay promised, right, to achieve this goal that was seemingly insurmountable. But I think with the right people, I think we're going to do it. So really appreciate you, Lindsay. I appreciate you being on the show. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think for the biggest thing for Best Buddies is that everything stays local. So when you make a donation to your local Best Buddies, it stays in the community. I think that's a huge part of what we do. And I think, life's a journey. Everything kind of takes you where you're going to go. And what's cool about it is even the setbacks are kind of pushing you to the next thing. So
yeah, I love that.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is fun. I need a podcast.
Yes, you do.